So I'll go ahead and get us going just with some introductions. So I'll just go down my list. If you just want to quickly unmute yourself and introduce yourself and your jurisdiction or agency. Everyone should know I'm Hannah Oden. I'm a planning coordinator at PAG. So I'm going to go through our members here. So the first one, I'm on the non-PAG side, I have Ben Elias.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Elias. I'm a lead planner with the City of Tucson.
Thank you, Ben. All right, and then let's go to Davida.
Hi, everyone. I'm Davida Mueller. I'm the Director of Service Planning and Development at Suntrand.
All right, thank you, Davida. And then Jason.
Good morning, Jason Bahi, Pasquayaki Tribe Transportation Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And then Jonathan Crow.
Good morning, Jonathan Crow, Pima County Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Jonathan. Then Mark Hoffman.
Good morning, Mark Hoffman, ADOT Planning.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And then Paul Casertano.
Hi, everybody. Paul Casertano here, Pima County DOT.
Thank you, Paul. And then Rhett Crowninshield.
Thank you, Hannah. Rhett Crowninshield, City Tucson DTM.
Thank you. And then I'm Dan Grossman. Dan, feel free to unmute yourself if you would like. Looks like you're still muted.
Dan Grossman, Town of Marana, CIP Process Analyst.
Great, thank you, Dan. Just going through my list. I think that is everyone, or jurisdictional members. So I'll go down the list quickly on the PAG side. So Jeanette.
Good morning, everyone. Jeanette D. Wren, Transportation Planning Director here at PAG.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. And Hansu.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Data Science Administrator at PAG.
Okay, and then Dustin.
Morning, Dustin Fitzpatrick, Air Quality Manager at PAG.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. And then David Mitchell.
Good morning, David Mitchell, Transportation Planner at PAG.
Thanks, David. And then Peter.
Hey, everyone. I'm Peter Krausak, Application Development Manager here at PAG.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter. And then we have our admin and support staff. So that's Crystal, Brianne, Jeff, and Isa. So if there's any technical issues or anything, they are on the call to help out. And it looks like we have just a couple more folks who joined us. So Jose, you just want to quickly introduce yourself?
Jose Rodriguez, Town of Oro Valley.
Perfect. And then Scott.
Scott Revenue, Manager Planning with Tucson Airport Authority.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, I think that's everyone. So again, welcome. So I guess we will go next to the in-kind form. Thank you. So this is pretty standard. I'll just read through it really quick. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG staff collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Hearing none. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG or RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. All right, and with that, we will go on to the next agenda item, which is the 2055 RMAP performance measures and targets. So earlier this week, let me go ahead and share my screen. Organized here. Oh, Crystal, if you could enable me to have screen sharing capabilities, that would be great. So I'm waiting for that. So earlier this week, we sent out an updated performance measure table. So David Mitchell is just going to go through that super quick. And if you have any questions after he goes through it, or if you looked at it ahead of time and have any questions, we can go ahead and answer those. All right, looks like I can share my screen. Just have to find the correct one. Just give me one moment here.
And we can see it.
You can see it. Perfect. All right, let me know if I need to zoom in or anything. But yeah, go ahead, David, whenever you're ready.
Cool. Thank you. And good morning again, everybody. This is the most recent version of the performance measures data that we have on hand. You'll see this in its this version, as well as more detailed graphs, charts, metadata in the upcoming draft tip document. The open houses will begin later next month in March, and there'll be a chance to look at the performance measures report in its entirety. This is the data that you can use. We've got data points dating back to 2014, and you can use this if you want to start evaluating some of your projects based on the RMAP 2045 targets. And then we will use as in this committee group, working group, for the development of the 2055 draft targets. So right now we've got 2045 targets, and after we're able to do some analysis through the TIP process, I will be coming back to this group with a draft set of 2055 targets for your review and discussion. There is one typo on this table I want to update you all on. If you go to the 2025 benchmark column on the right, down to environmental stewardship goals, we have the value there set at 8.0. That's a typo error. This was extracted from Excel, so somehow that happened at last moment, but the value should be 3.07. A little more clarification on the benchmarks. It's just an estimating tool to track whether or not we're on progress towards reaching our 2045 targets. So it's based on a simple trend line analysis, and a quick review of how we calculate that with the details on the calculations will be included in the TIP appendix. So if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and open it up. And if you want to dive into it more, we can. But, yeah, thank you.
Great, sounds good. Thank you, Dave. All right, if there's any questions
I got a question
about the table. Yep, go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay. So I'm just looks like it's sort of the most up-to-date information that's presented, but I'm also wondering, looks like for 2020, since 2020, it looks like there's a little bit of data there, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we could update the far right status column to a more current time frame. Is that possible?
Yeah, that column is derived from this, where we stand to the benchmark. So currently we have 2022 and 23 data sets. So we would be evaluating, are we on pace to our 2025 benchmark with those data points? It's a little premature to do that. However, once we get to the closer to the RMAP development, we will have 23 and 24 data points, and we will be that information will be provided. It's a little premature to do it now because we're kind of halfway through the evaluation period because the data lag. But through the natural organic process, that would be updated. I could give you a little bit of insight on some measures if they've significantly changed since this 2020 report. We did that in an earlier exercise, but from memory, I remember there were some transit changes. For example, ridership has been on a steady increase and is back to 2018 levels. There's been a shift in how the American Community Survey, their results are showing more people are teleworking, and therefore there are fewer people taking bikes and walking and transit as commute options to work, and so that's affecting some of our measures because it's one of the metrics used in calculating the measure. So those ones I can give you updates on to where there's been something that has immediate noticeable change in the trend. But otherwise, the tool that is best useful is the 5-year average. That takes the last 5 years of the data that's in the table. So if we're missing a data point, it just grabs it from a previous year. So this one will give you kind of a gauge on where we've been averaging versus maybe the last 2 years to see if we're on an upward or downward trend. And you can use that for, do we want to see an upward or downward trend? You'll see that in desired column here. And when I say, do we want to see it, those are in terms of pursuit of the RMAP 2045 targets. So if we're in the right trend, the right direction, that's how we've established these criteria. So good
Thank you.
question, Jonathan. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? Feel free to just jump in, or you can raise your virtual hand. But
So I think it would also be helpful to understand where the status change lies, Dave, at the right time. Whether it's premature for that, I'm not sure, but where we're going from, trending away to behind pace from the RMAP update to the draft. I think that would be good for the group to understand what kind of shifts we might be seeing in the status for these performance measures. So, walking us through that at the right time, I think would be really helpful.
Okay, and Paul, thanks for the question and the request. That there are two ways we could go about doing that. Is there's a trend line to get to that 2025 benchmark. Basically, I would capture the 2024 data point on that same trend line, and we can use that for evaluation. That's one approach. We could also just use the 2025 benchmark as a a forecasting mechanism and have a forecast for that 2024 year and see where we're expecting our data to lie and compare that with the 2025 benchmark. So we can do either approach. And if appropriate, we could have that as a discussion, or I could come to the group with a few examples as a practice with some of the measures, just to see which tool might be the better tool to approach, and then apply that tool to all 38 performance measures.
That makes sense to me. I'm simply looking at where the published RMAP update showed some of the performance measures as trending away, and that has now changed, or on pace, and it's now changed to trending away, for example. I think it would be helpful for us to know what those are and get any insight you have as to why that change has taken place.
Gotcha. Yes, and you'll see a version of that in the tip draft. Okay. And we'll have opportunity to provide feedback if there's any other information that you think is available that should be in there. We could certainly put that in before the final document is published.
all right. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Don't see any hands up. All right. Well, hearing none, if anything else. Oh.
Maybe, yeah. So maybe I think just it's clear, and but maybe it's good to add the data source, and maybe if it's doable, like just the notes actually include the actual just the measure in the unit, and but if it's also doable to just add like just the data source of these performance measures, I think that might be just informative.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Hansu. The table that we're looking for here is just a summary table of all the content that is in the performance report. The metadata I spoke of includes the data source, the years available, and then any types of calculations that are applied to the data. All that will be in great detail in the draft tip document. If it's also readily available now in the our PAG performance measures dashboard tool. If you need access to that, please send me an email and I'll get you set up. It's dmitchell@pagregion.com.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dave.
And are you guys still putting together the PDF compilation of those singular data pages, Dave and Peter? And will that be like an appendix, or is that just going to be like a link to go and find that at the website, or how do you envision doing that?
It's going to be an appendix. It's the individual PDF pages you're referencing are the report cards that the dashboard exports. Yep. There's a different version, but the same data. I use Excel and other tools to create the graphs and charts. So that's done in a different platform, but those will all be in the tip draft document. And as an appendix, it will be roughly a 50-page document inside the appendix.
Dave, I have one question.
Yes, hi, Ben.
Hey, the very first column here, pavement in poor condition, is there some context around the data lag being essentially the last 3 years? We don't have that captured.
This is a federal data set. It's not the data that is collected by PAG through its pavement condition program. It just so happens to be around the same time frame. These statistics are derived from the Federal Highways Annual Statistics Report. And since 2020, they're not updating the tables. I believe it's, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's data table H7, perhaps. I could send you some information on where that is. That information is also in the appendix report under the metadata. If it's a website, that link will be provided. And if there is a data lag, as we are seeing here, there is notation for that too. In this case, it just hasn't been published on their website yet.
All right, thanks.
Ben, that brings up a good point that we've talked about, several times over years, which is, there's some value to some of the federal data sets, but there's also a lot of network that's beyond the federal data set. So I guess I would say take that one with a grain of salt. We've just never really been able to get to like a universal regional pavement condition index that's used, that has common, data fields for each jurisdictional collection of PCI data. So that would kind of be the ideal, I think. But it might be, it has proven so far to be kind of difficult to get to. We can continue to work on this as we, step into the new era of pavement data collection with the work that PAG's doing, and then the work that the jurisdiction then individually have been doing. If there's a way to get at a common pavement condition index that's better than just the federal aid poor condition number, I think we should continue to talk about it. I don't think we're going to get there in short order for these purposes for RMAP publishing of this table, but it may be something that we want to keep alive and strive for.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone else? Any questions, comments? All right, well, if anything else comes up, if you have any questions as you look at the table more, anything performance measure related, feel free to shoot myself or Dave an email, and we will get back with you with the information. All right. So next we're going to move, so if that wraps up that agenda item, we will move on to the discussion of the project list for the 2055 RMAP. So I think what I will start with, let me go ahead and share my screen again. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to make sure I have the Project Explorer up. All right. So what I'm going to start with, share my screen. All right. So can everyone see this spreadsheet, the recommendation spreadsheet?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. So we had, as PAC staff, we had brought some recommendations to the group at the meeting last month. Just going through the project list, looking at, projects that maybe weren't, relevant to include in the RMAP anymore, or needed to be updated. So based on, there was some good discussion at the last meeting. We looked at some things a little bit more. So I sent out an updated recommendation table earlier this week. It's kind of split into two parts. So let's see, so starting on the second page, there's this blue line with additional recommendations for this meeting that we had looked at, and then kind of everything else. There was some updates based on the discussion. So for example, the Safe Routes to School program, there was discussion about definitely keeping that in the RMAP. So The updated recommendations are here. Again, this is, draft, definitely open to, discussion and conversation, to potentially update these in the project list. So hopefully you've, just kind of glanced through these when it was sent out, but I will go through maybe real quickly the additional recommendations, and then we can have more of a discussion. Let me zoom in a little bit. Hopefully it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to start with these first three projects here. So these are related to transit amenities and bus shelters. So these were pretty similar. The first one was transit amenities at bus stop locations. And then the other two were from the city of Tucson and Pima County, just related to, bus shelters and, refurbishing those and enhancements. So PAG transit staff, just because these are three fairly similar projects, a potential, thought and recommendation would be to combine these three into one, multiple sponsor category and combine the funding. Let's see. And then the next one was 558.08. So this was just a recommendation. These are the federal transit grants, PAG staff transit input, just to add FTA 5339 funding in there as well, in addition to the 5310 and 5311 programs, and revise the cost estimate to a bit more, so about 138 million, up from 47 million. The next one was the neighborhood circulator bus system, which is 223.08. And this was reviewed by transit staff, and just based on the current cost of service, the recommendation would be to increase this slightly for about 116 million to 126 million. Another recommendation. So this one here, this would be potentially, oh, go ahead, Javita.
Sorry, it took me a second to find my mute. If you're gonna combine 5339 with anything, I would combine it with the vehicles, because 5339 is only used to purchase vehicles.
Okay, for the FT. No.
Because 5310 and 5311 and 5339, they're distinct programs in what they can and can't do. 5310 and 11 can work together, but 5339 is only vehicles.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna make a note. So purchase.
And I need to leave for another meeting, but I'll try to come back later.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for joining us, David. And yeah, feel free to email me as well with anything.
All right, bye.
All right, thank you. Okay, so just moving down. So this one here, this would be a potential new project. This is based on PAG transit staff input, just to add an additional project for Sun Shuttle vehicle replacements and support vehicles. Because there are specific projects for SunTrans, SunVan, and SunLink. So the thought would be to add one also for Sun Shuttle. So each has a unique project. These next three here, these are related to bridge repair, replacements, improvements. So there are two reserve projects from Pima County and the city of Tucson related to bridge repair and replacement. There is a multiple sponsor project for bridge improvements, which is 202.98. So the thought, just to consolidate these projects, would be to combine these three into a multiple sponsor project, either under the existing ID number or to create a new ID number. And then the combined total funding would be 460 million. So that would be, more of a multiple sponsor bucket just for bridge repair and replacements. And then the last one should hopefully be pretty straightforward. So this was related to traffic management system region-wide, so traffic signal systems and traffic flow, 234.08. So this, as it currently stands, is specific to arterial streets. So our recommendation, just looking at current TIP projects and what they were tied to in the RMAP, would be to just remove remove the reference to the word arterial, just so this could apply to also, local, collector, and arterial streets for traffic signals and upgrades. So those were just kind of the new potential recommendations. Again, just looking to the ones previously, there were, like, for example, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so for example, like 370.98, that was the Transview, so that was updated to stay in, and the cost for this project. So as it is currently in the RMAP, it's 5 million over the course of 30 years. So we did update this. Essentially, the only cost that we have right now is just the cloud server every year. So this brings it down significantly to about $20,000 over the course of 30 years. Yeah, and there were just some other minor updates. I'm sorry, I know I kind of jumped around a bit there. Some of the recommendations, are still in here from the last time, but if there are any thoughts, questions about these recommendations, I would love to get your feedback and have that conversation. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks. I got a couple comments or suggestions on the first page. I'll start with the easy one. Project 54108, alternative energy and fuel vehicle infrastructure. The recommendation is to remove that from the list, but I think that is where we would house EV infrastructure improvements. And so I think in this current condition state, we need to have a project that deals with electric vehicle and charging stations. So I would recommend that we keep that in.
Okay, I'm sorry, the 541.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to talk about that, I'm all ears, but that's my suggestion on that one. And then the other one I think is a little bigger of an issue and more of a discussion item perhaps is the third project on the list, 55708, non-regional roadways throughout the region. I have a lot of concerns about removing that from the list because I think it raises a lot of questions as to sort of how local jurisdictions are going to be able to access regional funds to do projects that otherwise might not be able to occur. So I don't think the recommendation or argument, if you will, that those projects might not be regional in nature is valid. I think there's a lot of projects that we spend regional funds that are, small little projects up to major projects. And I don't think it's kind of reasonable to pick and choose what we think is a regional project and what is not a regional project when we do that. So in this respect, I think this project should stay unless there's some compelling reason to delete it, because I think it potentially eliminates the possibility of us accessing regional funds for local projects.
Additionally, I think that funding largely, correct me if I'm wrong, comes from the local jurisdictional contribution or identified funding for RMAP. So if the project goes away, then maybe the funding should go back to the local jurisdictions and we should just, it's really a philosophical question. Are we talking about the local fund contributions, the local, jurisdictional HERF and those things that I think feed that project? And if we're going to put them somewhere else, then we should talk about whether or not they should be in the plan at all. For the alternate fuel thing, I think Jonathan's right. We need to have a parent project so that we can point to that as we're advancing, alternate fuel type projects. So that really becomes the biggest service of keeping projects in. If we have something to point, a parent project to point to within the RMAP, that will keep us compliant with the federal regulations as we're seeking to put program funding in the tip. Sorry, I think I just cut you off, Jason, or I'm not sure who that was.
Oh, that was me, Paul.
Maybe Jose.
Oh, hey, Jose.
I was just asking on that 557 non-regional roadways. Have we even used that at all in the tip at all? I mean, non-regional roadways? Everything that's in the tip is regional.
You know, I have recollection
Yeah.
that some of the, gosh, what it used to be called, the RR&R projects that the
Surface
jurisdiction.
treatments? Yeah,
What's
but they'll still, yeah, the pavement, it was like pavement preservation or something like that.
There was some pavement preservation, and then there's, you know, a smattering of local projects that come up that,
Mm.
you know, for most examples, they're just completely funded with local HERF or
Funds,
local
yeah.
jurisdiction. But if you ever need, you know, some complementary HERF or, you know, regional HERF or other dollars, if you don't have anything to point to, that makes it difficult to comply with that requirement.
That's what I was getting. If it was local, non-regional, it's kind of hard to get regional funds that
That's exactly
I'd be eligible for. Well, yeah, there's a road out here that I would like to use regional funds, but once it's determined that it's not regional, then it's no longer eligible for regional funds.
That's right.
See your point. Why even have it there? Just remove it.
Yeah, it becomes kind of like eating our own tail or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks for the feedback. Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the sentiments that Jonathan and Paul provided on the 541.08. I think if we care to delete that item, we might just want to scope a new item with a more detailed description of where we're at and what the cost estimate would be for something like a multi-jurisdictional project that could envelop electrification infrastructure.
You know, and not to speak for the group, but I think there may be opportunities if we want to massage some of the project names. I think we can kind of broaden them and keep them, you know, keep us all happy and satisfied that we have something to point to and maybe not paint ourselves into a corner too much. And I think you're trying to do that with some of these already. So that may be a solution for that 557.8. Instead of calling it exclusively non-regional roadways, maybe it's titled something a little bit different. That allows, you know, the local roadway and also allows other types of roadways. Conversely, I can kind of provide a little bit of history on the last one on the list, that arterial traffic management system.
Sure.
That simply just follows the nomenclature of the intelligent transportation systems architecture. So there's elements in that architecture, and one of which is traveler information system, another of which is arterial traffic management. And so that's just why it was named that. I guess, you know, the point I want to make is I don't think the project title should be misconstrued as governing the eligibility of the types of projects, because it's not a federal functional class title of arterial traffic management. It's just intended to manage, you know, signal networks and the larger types of corridors that are carrying traffic. I don't think it's intended to prohibit the use on collectors or anything like that.
I know. Thanks, Paul. That was, you know, that was helpful. Yeah, going through the tip. Yeah, this was tied to you know, other types of projects, not just arterial. So yeah, we were just looking at that for consistency, but.
And then I would also advocate for keeping the regional travel information system a little bit more than just the pad costs for the server storage, because there's other pieces of traveler information stuff that might be done. I mean, there's been lots of discussion about, setting up a data archive system, or doing, message boards that deliver traveler information, or developing new apps, what have you. So I think maybe just a little bit more flexibility in there. I don't know that we need the entire 5 million that was in there, but something beyond just $20,000, I think might be helpful if any larger projects come about that are traveler information type projects. We have the capacity to point to a more significant region-wide travel information project.
All right, and then Ben?
Apologies if I just am not as versed in the non-regional roadways item that was previously discussed. If Jonathan or Paul have maybe some more context on that. The description that I'm reading off of the data provided is that it's jurisdictional discretion for local roads. Is that actually a local classification, or would this also be considered for something like a collector that maybe falls outside another project scope, but you could make the argument that it's a little bit more of more regional value in there?
I might ask, Jonathan and Jose and others to chime in, but my initial understanding is that the key words there are local discretion. I don't think it has ever been intended to be bound to a particular classification of roadway. It's been more that the locals are the ones that are providing these jurisdictional HERF dollars or other dollars, and have the discretion to say that they're spent on any classification of roadway where they see need to do a project. So that's why I'm talking about whether or not a title change might help out there, or broaden it a little bit better so that it's a bit more flexible, as I think it has been intended. But Jonathan, Jose, others, please correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, no, I think you're speaking correctly. That would be my assumption too, Paul. So I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, same here, Paul. All right.
Oh, Paul, you're muted if you're speaking.
Sorry. Yeah, so I would say Hannah and Jeanette and others, feel free to figure out what a title change might look like, but maybe just eliminating non-regional roadways from that title, and just having it be jurisdictional discretion for roadway improvement projects.
Yeah, we certainly can do that. Hannah, do you know off the top of your head, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you know if there were any tip IDs tied to that?
I don't, I think I just checked. Let me just triple check again.
It doesn't look like it.
They're not.
I don't think it's ever been on the tip. That's the reason I was asking the question originally.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Non-regional roadways, discretion for local roads. I mean, that doesn't have to be in the tip. That's pretty much up to the jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
We think in the tip, that's because we're talking about regional.
And we'll circle back with Dave Zindo, because I think when he factored the local fund contributions into the finance plan, it was just dollars that would be spent on regional roads. And so I don't think that local money that's spent on local road priorities was even factored into the finance plan, but we can circle back and check with him. We haven't looked at that in a couple months.
Yeah, that's not necessarily how I recall the initial outreach and survey.
Okay.
I would say that I recall that you were looking for how much are you spending on operations and maintenance, and how much are you spending on all of your transportation stuff, as let's capture it all, and then we'll figure out how to reference it and display it in the long range plan.
Okay.
So yeah, take a look at that and then we can figure out what that's composed of.
Okay.
All right, so there's something else. Okay, was there anything else that jumped out at anyone for discussion? Or Jeanette, I don't know if you had anything else to add about any of the other discussion or any other recommendations, but
No, not on these. Unless anybody else had questions, or I do want to just say thank you to those of you who emailed us, throughout the week as you saw things. We really appreciate that and an opportunity to kind of clean stuff up as we go along. So it's helpful.
I think I would just want to make sure that I am in support of Davita's observation to try to keep the explicit transit line items isolated or, called out. I think it'll help for reporting purposes and all sorts of things. Just be mindful of how much you're consolidating and what you're actually gaining from it, because you might there might be repercussions that we're not necessarily seeing, where if in the future we're asked to track the representation of 5311 money in the long range plan, and there's been a shift to consolidate it with 5310, that becomes then difficult to pull that piece out. So just be mindful of that. And then I haven't really wrapped my head around this, but I'm also a little bit wary of I'm seeing a recommendation to remove commuter incentive stuff. So I don't know if that would become an ineligible activity altogether, or if it would be referenced within another project. But I think there are, federal and other dollars that are eligible for and continue to be used for commuter incentives. And I wouldn't want us to shoot ourselves in the foot by taking out reference to our ability to do that and then not being able to move forward with, whether it be van pool incentives or any other commute incentives programs.
okay. Yeah, currently with that one, I'm just going to read the detailed description. Yeah, it's to provide cash incentives to change the behavior of driverless commuters. People who switch their mode of travel will be paid up to $50 a month for up to 6 months. So yeah, my understanding is that those cash incentives are currently not offered, but your thought would be to keep it on here for anything potential in the future as far as incentives, whether that's cash or not.
That's my thinking. Like, I don't know that we need to be explicit about the parameters of a formerly existing program as a cash incentive. Let's just reference it as an incentive program. And then we can say, yeah, we want to do incentives. And that's the parent project that we're referencing to move forward this commuter incentive program.
Yeah, we can look for a spot to see if it's something that we can kind of combine with another one. And if not, maybe just come up with a different description so it's a little bit more encompassing of, potential future programs that might be developed.
Yeah. Same thing goes for like the right-of-way preservation project on the top of page 1. Like, I don't know, do we want to fully eliminate something like that because it's not current? Or does it serve a value to have it in there as a parent reference project for us to preserve right away? Do we need it? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but like, if it's not really doing any harm, it's not taking up a huge amount of dollars, and it serves as something we point to as a parent project, then maybe it's serving a function.
Have we used that at all in the past, Paul? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if that's just part of, individual project development, or if it's a specific parent project for reference or not. But I think the idea is let's get better at right-of-way preservation. So let's make sure that we're featuring it in the long-range plan as an activity that we're trying to coordinate.
I would echo the sentiments of the just redefining the commuter incentives for alternative transportation. I think that could be, a flexible description enough to support any future programming. We've been looking and with some of our partners at electric bike rebate programs, and that have been successful in other communities, and the funding source is pretty much different in all of those cases. So providing at least a line item that we could attach that to in future if it gets off the ground would be fantastic.
That being said, Ben, I don't know, have you guys done any research onto what something like that might cost?
Not anything too formal. If you're just trying to get something in the general neck of the woods, I could work to get some numbers to you.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Of course.
Because the 5 million, I don't know if that is over or under what you guys would be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, so TEP is working with a program, and that's fixed on a 3-year plan. It's very minimal. It's really not that much money. I want to say it's 200,000 or something. It's pretty small. But that being said, in other places, city and county Denver is doing one. Also, the state of Colorado is supporting a program, and their demand is extremely.
The 2016 version of the long range plan, how much should be put toward pavement maintenance? And at that point in time, I think, the agreement by the technical advisory committee there was, yeah, it should be like something in the range of $3.5 million of the 15 billion, $3.5 billion out of the 15 billion available in reasonably anticipated funds. And now we're just kind of seeing that shaved down, which might be fine, but I think the needs are way beyond the $1.389 billion, and we all know that. So I want to just make sure that everybody kind of gets that and is comfortable with the number that we're showing in a long-range plan for the investment target for pavement maintenance, for example. If we all think that, hey, pavement maintenance should be more than, I don't know, what is it, like under 10% of the total available revenues for RMAP, then we should talk about that. So maybe part of it is in plan and, the remainder becomes in reserve or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yep.
Most of the funding for the pavement preservation comes from the jurisdictions themselves, right? I've never seen regional funds go to pavement preservation. At one time they were federal funds. And mostly going to the city, but for a while now, everything that faded away.
Yeah, it's largely a local funded effort, but there's local funds in this
correct
finance plan. So like we should have say on, I guess I just don't want it to be misconstrued that, oh, you only need, $1.3 billion to deal with your regional pavement needs. I don't think that's the story at all. I think we need to be kind of explicit that, there's probably a $4 billion plus need for pavement investment through 2055. but we're only gonna allocate, 1.5 billion in plan because we've got other things that we need to make sure are funded in plan, and we're gonna put the remainder in reserve, for example.
Yeah, and I think our intent too is in the text of the document to elaborate more on that, because you're right. Like, I don't want the number that's on the project list to characterize the need in
Yeah.
pavement, because there is such a it's a bigger need than what we would ever put in this project list. So it'll be better to characterize pavement separately, more with text and explanations about how each jurisdiction intends on covering those costs. I know you guys, the county, all the jurisdictions have a pretty good grasp on pavement needs, so it would be easier to kind of paint that picture in text versus just put that number there and and let that be the assumption for the next 4 years. But yeah, we'll be working with Lance and making sure that that's well characterized in the plan.
And Hannah and Jeanette, remind me, I can't recall off the top of my head. At one point, there was more of a general maintenance project that was beyond just pavement. Do we have something in there that allows us to point? I mean, I don't know that we necessarily need it, but like for signals and signs and other stuff that are not pavement maintenance, is there a general maintenance project that still exists? And should there be, I guess, is the more important question.
Ooh,
Or do we just put maintenance to the side and say, it happens?
I have to go and look in the Explorer to see it.
No.
Off the top of my head. One day I will have all these memorized.
Please don't, Jeanette.
I don't think there's
On
nothing there.
489.
I think most of the maintenance is left up to the jurisdictions. Now, if you're gonna upgrade your system, then you have that shown as modernization or
Yeah, or it's more specific to like bridges or
Yeah, that's
And I know
pavement.
what I was wondering.
there's upgrades for technology and those sorts of things, and there's definitely funding for amenities, or bus shelters and stuff like that. They're just not lumped into one general maintenance bucket.
now that you guys mentioned the bridges, are we gonna have just one line item in there for bridges on the for construction and repairs?
So yes, that's down here at the bottom of page 2. So that was just a suggestion to consolidate these 3 projects. Yeah, there is this 202.98, that's a multiple sponsor project. And then Pima County and the city of Tucson also have bridge replacement projects both on the reserve list. So that was a suggestion we could add to the, combine them all into that multiple sponsor project and maybe increase that funding. But yeah, if anyone has any thoughts about that, but that was our initial suggestion and thought.
I'm okay with having it one line item.
Yeah, I think that provides the flexibility we need. I don't see an issue with that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so again, if we did, add this funding to the multiple, we can take a closer look at the funding. Yeah, so yeah, what I'll do, we can keep talking about the recommendations, but I will definitely update this list and send it out for review to everyone. Any other thoughts on the recommendations as it is now? Oh, hi Natalie, go ahead. Welcome.
Hi. So is there going to be an opportunity to add new things? I'm just curious about potentially adding in projects that could relate to the carbon reduction program. Is there a chance to kind of ponder that and think about moving forward where we might want to go with new projects? Or is this the end?
No, so Jeanette, yeah, correct me if you want to add anything, but yeah, there is still potential for something like that. to add that into the RMAP.
Okay, I think we should, since we have millions of dollars for the region for that we should be really, there's a few more years that haven't been allocated, and we should be doing projects where we're actually reducing carbon.
There may be even a requirement to identify those as well, so I would take a closer look at that. I know there's a requirement to lay out the CRP funded projects in the STIP and TIP. And I'm not sure how it reads for a long range plan.
Okay, we can look into that. All right. Any other thoughts, questions? As it stands now? All right. Not seeing anything. So, thanks all so much for, the great feedback and discussion. I will update. We're sorry, Crystal, still moving on to another item for this. Not quite done yet. But I will update the recommendation list, send that out for additional review, and feel free to email comments and thoughts, and we'll revisit that. All right.
So is this the final list? Hannah, I wasn't there at the last meeting. Is this the final list, or what are we looking at here?
The recommendations?
Yes.
So no, this is not final. So this was just going through some of the projects, and these were just recommendations to add potentially to the final list that we were discussing with the working group.
Okay.
So I have a list of things to look into some more. So again, I'll be updating this. But the next thing I want to move on to, actually maybe I'll go over here. So yesterday I'm kind of late, so my apologies about that. But I sent out, it's I think 21 pages of all the projects currently in the Explorer. I know there's a few projects from Pima County that Jonathan, you had requested to be removed. So those are still in here because we haven't taken those out quite yet. But so these are all the in-plan new projects, reserve projects as they stand now. I also included the jurisdictional priority on the far right-hand column. So take a look. If you notice if anything, a priority is missing from any of your projects, we can certainly help if you need assistance adding that into the Explorer. We can help with that. You can do that directly yourself in the attribute page of the Explorer, or if you want to email me a list, we're happy to update that on our end. But this just gives you an idea kind of in one place what all the projects are, including the reserve for each jurisdiction. The other thing that we had sent out, so this is a list, I think, of about 78 or 77 projects. So this is a preliminary draft list of projects with committed funding. So these are projects, so these include ADOT projects. We went through the preliminary draft of the TIP list for fiscal year 25 through 29, which was sent to TPC. So we looked at that. So any RMAP projects that were tied to a proposed TIP project. These are also included projects for transit operations and maintenance, RTA 1 deferred projects. And I think that's it. But these were, yes, this is a project list of projects with committed funding that need to stay in the in-plan list. There are some in here, let me see, I believe, there's some that are actually were in reserve. So those would need to be moved to the in-plan list. But yes, this is the bridge project that we had talked about. So, this, depending on the consolidation of projects, this list will be adjusted. For example, some of these City of Tucson projects, you'll notice that some of these were newly added projects. This is because the new project replaced a previous RMAP project that a TIP project was tied to, if that makes sense. So that's why some of these are new as well. But just based on, a rough, calculating all these, a rough calculation, the total cost is about $13.8 billion. The money. So as a reminder, the fiscal constraint as it stands now is approximately 16.2 billion based on the financial plan. So that might be adjusted some, but just wanted to show that this is where we're kind of at right now. Jeanette, I don't know if you had anything to add to that before we kind of go into the discussion, but yeah, I mean, this was meant to inform the project list as you're looking through the projects for your own jurisdiction. And then, yeah, if you go to that main project list that I sent out, this is not updated in the Explorer quite yet, but the proposed status is in there. So anything that says proposed committed, and then in this big master list is reflected in the proposed committed list. So hopefully that all made sense. But yeah, Jeanette, I don't know if you had anything to add. I'll defer to you here for a minute.
Yeah, no, Hannah, that was good. I think just to summarize, like what we're trying to show here is projects that have money on them. So they really need to stay in the list. Either they're currently in the TIP, they're being referenced in the TIP. ADOT's got funding already tied to them. So they're sort of the foundation for the list, if you will. And it kind of gives us a little bit of perspective of, what we're looking at in terms of, filling the rest of that bucket, if you will. So the buckets, the fiscal constraint 16.2 already has these $13.8 billion worth of projects in it. So what the ask to you guys is to look at this and provide comments to us, and then also look at your projects and let us know beyond just projects that you want in plan, if there are any that have funding tied to them, or that I think we have everything that's in the TIP, in the proposed TIP, but if there's something missing, by all means, let us know. That way we know when we're doing project selection and we're diving into different characteristics of these projects, we know what our limit is, if you will. We know how much money we have to spend.
Jenna, so all these projects are on the current TIP, or the new TIP is coming up. And
or they're transit related or ADOT related.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a few others, and then I think there's some regional buckets in there too. I have to go back and look. We've been working on this
project. No, that's fine. I just want to get a clarification. But does that mean we have like $13 billion worth of projects in the TIP?
No. Go ahead, Hannah.
I would say not just in the TIP. So I'm happy to provide, work on this list and provide it in another way, maybe adding a column where you can see, like if a project is in the proposed TIP, or if it's an ADOT project or a transit project, there might be it might be in multiple places, but I'm trying to think. I can't remember off the top of my head how many TIP projects there were. I may have my total numbers wrong. But yeah, so this would be not only the proposed TIP projects, but also other projects with committed funding that don't have a TIP ID, if that makes sense. It's kind of a rambling answer.
No, just looking at that $13 billion, like, wow, I didn't know we had that many projects in the TIP. $13 billion. That seems pretty high.
That's not the number. This is not just the TIP list. There's more to
right.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because it's for example, the State Route 410, the Sonoran corridor. I mean, we're just starting the tier 2, and that construction funding that's identified, that none of that is in the current TIP. And so if you can break that out, that would help to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other consideration, of course, once that RTA Next list gets finalized, there might be some additions to this.
Yeah, that's gonna help. If you can clarify that $13 billion, because yeah, that seems pretty high.
Sure, yeah, I'll break that down. All right, yeah, Paul or Jonathan, you both have your hands up, so either one, you can go ahead.
You want to go, Paul?
Just one point, I think Mark's ears have gone up and everything. I just want to make sure that ADOT has the opportunity to look at this and understand what that should look like. And then asking, like, do we have the the right number for the anticipated ASTP and other statewide dollars that would feed into the PAG region long range plan? Does that number also need to be kind of checked out again to reconcile between what is, proposed committed from the ADOT standpoint and what ADOT is actually serious about? Like, yeah, we're not gonna bring that much money to the PAG region. We have to kind of shave some of those a little bit. So there's that piece. I think you covered the RTA next piece. I think that reconciliation needs to be done because none of us want to be in a position where the RTA next hopefully approved projects are not referenced in the long range plan, because then that makes life difficult, as we all know. I think those are the only two that I had.
Great, yeah, and all the it stands down the draft RTA next list, all of those are currently in the Explorer. They're just not necessarily marked as proposed committed quite yet. For the name roadway projects, that might be close to $1 billion, but I would need to verify. But yeah, I can include that information, absolutely. And then for the financial plan, again, there might be some updated projections for funding related to ADOT projects. So once we have that, we can share that. But go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, just to follow up kind of what I think what we've already all said and are observing. But I mean, the number 13 billion committed and only 16 available really ties our hands for kind of, doing any planning. And I think we need to be careful of, what projects we determine are committed and the amounts, as Paul said, because I think, ADOT does probably the best job, I think, of the regional partners in terms of doing planning and having plans in place that are available to mine to put into our regional plan. And so they're at an advantage in that they've already done the planning work that the smaller jurisdictions here may not have done. And so just the fact that they've done the planning and the smaller jurisdictions shouldn't be the criteria that we use to say, well, yeah, you can get more money than the smaller jurisdictions because you've already done the planning work and these guys haven't. So I think I think we need to be careful of what we determine, as a committed and what those amounts are, because there are, a lot of projects that the local jurisdictions are going to want to add in or into the in plan. And if we're not allowed to, because like, for example, the Sonoran Corridor, not to use the best example, but we don't have 600 million allocated for that construction, as Mark said. So I think we need to be careful on how we proceed with this list. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Jonathan. And yeah, I mean, this was our first look at it to kind of just frame it. So there's definitely refinement to do. We recognize that and are gonna continue to, well, and the ask right here is for you guys to look at this and provide that kind of feedback for sure. And that's Sonoran Corridor is always the sort of the elephant in the room in all these discussions where yeah, is it fair to tie up over $500 million for one project in our long range plan? We know there's going to be money spent towards that project, but what's a realistic picture, a realistic number to put in our long range plan? So that's definitely a conversation, and we want to hear your guys' thoughts on those for sure.
Yeah, just to
Jen-
follow up, I mean, the city has done their Move Tucson plan, and so that gives them an excellent list of projects to flood the RMAP with. And the county hasn't done that yet. We're doing that later this year. We're starting that, but they're at an advantage in that they've got a number of projects and dollar amounts to put into the new plan. And in fact, their recommendation is what was it? Upwards of about 64% of all new projects are within the city limits or city jurisdiction. So, we just need to be fair, I guess, about how we, craft the RMAP so that we just don't give advantage to those agencies that have the luck of having done their plan previous to this exercise and have a number of projects that they can put into the plan, whereas the other jurisdictions are catching up and needing to do that. That's all.
Yeah, I was wondering, Jeanette, so the ADOT projects, the ADOT major projects that we've identified, and are the ones that goes proposed committed they can include in the plan? I mean, is it being looked at as those are limited to the 13%, the RAC allocation to the PAG region for ADOT major projects, and the projection that was provided from ADOT Finance out through the plan?
It's not just constrained to that dollar amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, oh, go ahead, Hannah. Did you?
Oh, sorry. Were you going to close this out?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Just a little bit, fill that awkward silence, as we all say here. But we do appreciate everybody coming together and having some of these discussions. And Hannah, did you have any closing points before I
No, sorry. So I was just gonna see if anyone, I mean, feel free to email me as well, but if anyone had any changes to projects right now. Jonathan, I know that you noted some things on the multiple sponsor project, so I know if welcome to discuss those now, or as PAG staff, we still need to take a little bit closer look and can reach out to those specific agencies as well. But I'm happy to pull up the Explorer if needed. Yeah, or if anyone else just wants to chime in with any changes that they know right now that they want to let myself and the group know about.
Could I ask just really quick, since Scott is here from TAA, if he knows anything about the two TA projects that I had flagged you about, Hannah and Jeanette. Scott, there's a couple projects. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a roadway that comes in off of Alvernon Road and looks like it just services a private corporate tarmac, and yet that's being put in the as a suggested project for the RMAP. And do you know anything about that particular project?
Yeah, it's so we have to Aeronautical Way is a private TA maintained road. And it's currently, there's no public access to it. So we've recently, it's still controlled by fencing, but we're eventually going to open up the road. It's still going to be private, maintained by the TA, but it's intended to be used by one of our tenants that's constructing a new aircraft repair hangar for their aircraft. So they conduct routine maintenance on their air carrier aircraft. So they can get their employees in and out, and then also other users that may want to come along and build their own uses. It could be the potential for tearing apart aircraft or rehabilitation of aircraft, but we're kind of trying to prepare, and we have to make improvements, kind of widen that road with our own local funding to accomplish that. And we also have to make improvements at the intersection of Aeronautical Way and Alvernon Way to meet City of Tucson standards, so people can safely decelerate off of Alvernon Way and then also make safe turning movements as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. And then there's one other project that you probably can speak to is it's basically the extension of Alvernon past the new corner that we built with the the relocation of Hughes Access Road, and it provides access to undeveloped properties that are owned and up by the TAA. Is that just basically kind of a future economic development type road project to facilitate development of those parcels?
Are you indicating, is it the project that's kind of along the alignment of Alvernon going west? Is that the one you're referring to, or down in Aerospace Parkway?
No, it parallels Aerospace Parkway just to the south of Aerospace Parkway, and it
Okay.
ties into the intersection of Alvernon and Aerospace. And there's nothing down there now, obviously, but it's all TAA property.
That might be the proposal we have in our airport layout plan to show a future connection, I think, going to the southeast, or maybe you're talking about the area that at one point in time we were contemplating bisecting our property in the middle to help facilitate development, because I know there's a restriction the county put in along Aerospace Parkway where we can't come in unless we're coming off a Country Club Road or Campbell Avenue, which actually doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the one, the bisecting road project. So yeah, I was just curious what that was and if it's real and if it's going to be public. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, right now we're still positioning that property, and really south of Aerospace Parkway. I know we're trying to advertise it to people, and there's been a different philosophy on how we'd likely be approaching that area, but I know we're still interested in doing the road in the future, kind of southeast of the intersection of Aerospace Parkway and Alvernon Way, that would tie into the future Sonoran corridor. So that's still something we know we keep setting aside when people come to us being interested in the property. And there's also, we've had some discussions of still trying to have that internal roadway built, because again, we know people can't really access off of Aerospace Parkway. So I've been trying to ensure that anyone that's trying to develop knows that there probably needs to be some kind of cross connection put in to facilitate access. So we're still trying to wrestle with the fact, because we have other utilities that want to come in through the area to help balance everyone's needs regionally as well.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. All right. Anyone else have any last things to share or discuss?
I just wanted to fill everyone in real quick. We've got next month we'll start to see some presentations from Hunsu and the data science team, as he mentioned, talking about in the context of performance measures, but modeling is kicking off pretty busy, those guys always. So we'll be seeing them at TPC as well as at the working group. Our active transportation planning contract with Kimley Horn just fired up, and we will have some technical groups meeting to work on that. I suspect it'll be most of those of us who are here. Just knowing everybody and what your roles are at your agencies, but more to come on that, and Hannah's project manager for that as well. So I don't think we'll have those discussions under the umbrella of the RMAP working group, but just keep that in mind as we reach out, that there's going to be a few different planning efforts going on that you will be tapped into, and we always appreciate working with you guys on those things. So more to come, and it's almost March. Hard to believe, but we'll see some of you in the next couple of weeks for the special TPC meeting for the TIP, and then at the TIP open houses. So if you guys need any more information, of course, reach out to myself, Hannah, Jamie. I would say reach out to Hunsu, but I'm protective of his time, so you can reach out to Hunsu, but
let me know if you have any questions.
Please.
Jeanette and Hannah, do you guys happen to know, do you have intention for the active modes plan to feed the update of, active mode stuff in the RMAP, or is the timing just not really going to be there for that?
I don't think the timing is going to be there. It may not. I would love to say, yes, we can roll it all in.
Yeah.
But it's, the timing of that contract, obviously, it's gonna impact long range planning in the next cycle. But if there's opportunity to do that, of course we will. But yeah, it's just the timing is not ideal for that this go round.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thanks. All right, everybody. I'll let Hannah give the parting words since she ran the show.
No, just want to thank everyone so much, for taking the time, not only for, this meeting, but also, I know I've been probably bugging a number of you with a lot of emails. So thank you for responses as we, it's a lot of projects as we, work through them and just make sure that everything is updated and correct. So thank you all. So yeah, I will follow up with some updated information, send that out ahead of the next meeting for any, thoughts and feedback, and we'll go from there. So thank you all so much again.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for bugging us, Hannah.
Anytime.